Esther Ranson asks the question, is milk good for you? Later this evening, Benny Hill reprises his role as Ernie the Milkman as he once again runs around at high speed and pats a small bald man on the head. Now, the 80sNostalgia.com interview, and this week, Villordsutch.
So we've chatted online for a few years, on and off. I've only ever met you once in Manchester, I think, at the Primark t-shirt event.
Primark retro bash, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. So I don't know much about you, so give me 3 random facts about you to get me started. 3 retro-themed 80s facts.
Retro-themed 80s facts. Let's think. I was left dumbstruck at the end of Blake 7. I used to play snooker on the pot black table in the front room all through the summer holidays. Remember snooker pot black table? And what else? My Tonka truck is still in the loft rusting away.
Wow, I feel like I know you even more now.
How's that?
That's perfect. So TV in the 80s, first thing that I think of when I think of TV in the 80s is things like Knight Rider, the Thames Television title card, Pebble Mill at 1, Bully from Bullseye. What do you think? What's the first thing that springs to mind when you think of 80s TV?
80s television for me was science fiction mainly. I was lucky enough to grow up with my dad, who was introduced me to science. We watched Star Trek, Doctor Who, Blake 7, and all the rest of it. So I was lucky enough to grow around that and Benny Hill, and what else did he watch all the time? Hot Gossip. Remember Hot Gossip? A bunch of sexy dancers prancing around on stage. So for me, it was mainly, there was no game shows. He hated game shows. Coronation Street was my mum's. No other soap operas, but mainly it was science fiction for me. I grew up around science fiction, which was very lucky. So my childhood was all science fiction. He hated, however, I had to watch. So Knight Rider and the A-Team, I had to watch that when he wasn't in the house. He used to always say, I'm not watching that American crap. And he refused to watch anything that was American.
So that was your secret pleasure then?
That was, yeah. And if I was watching it when he was in the house, he'd come home and turn it over. So some episodes of the A-Team with Knight Rider, I've still not seen the end of.
And what are your earliest TV memories? A thing like Puss and Trumpton?
Oh, yeah. TV memories. I was talking to my daughters just about this the other day when my youngest was asking me about children's television. And I was saying, well, children's television for us didn't start until about, if I remember rightly, about 3:25 in the afternoon. Up until that, there was a card telling us what was going to be on television. There's nothing on TV up until that. And then around 5:30, it went off again. You had nothing on television for children. And it was Bike Bus, Ivor the Engine. Perhaps we had like Play School early on in the day. But we had Bod and Oddities. We never had. I know kids today have bizarre television programs, but we did have Bod and Mr. Ben. I grew up on Bod and Mr. Ben. TV was weird for us. And when I went back to try and show them an episode of Bagpuss, about 2 hours into one episode, they could see them looking at me thinking, what are you trying to push on me here? But I did grow up on that, and we never had 24 hours of children's television on repeat. We had an hour plus fix, and that was it. You had to be grateful for that. But that was my history of television. Children's television was Bod, Bagpuss, Mr. Ben, Jamie and the Magic Torch. I love Jamie and the Magic Torch. Charlton the Wheelies. Christ, all been back now. It's like I've been woken up. Do you remember this? Willow the Wisp, Rainbow. I used to watch Rainbow, extremely small. Fascinated with Rainbow. But Jamie and the Magic Torch was a favourite of mine. I never liked Sport Billy.
No, we used to play Sport Billy in the playground, and we'd just run round and then have to pull a random thing out of an imaginary bag. So we're going to cross the river. Have you got a speedball? Yeah, it's in the bag here. Whip a speedboat out.
Put a random thing out of your bag. If it was my bag at school, it'd probably be a nicked club biscuit from one I stole from home. Because my mum worked for the NHS, she could buy club biscuits cheap from the staff shop. And I'd regularly nick a club biscuit wafer or orange biscuit when no one was looking. So it'd probably be a club biscuit. What have you got today? An orange club or a wafer club? Lubba, 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 lubba. Club.
Did you ever have a video recorder when you were young? Because people don't realise that TVs didn't used to record things in the 80s. You had to get a separate device to record programmes.
We had multitudes of video recorders. My dad was engineer, mechanic, fixer, electrician. So people would give him video recorders to fix. So we had Betamax. We had Betamax videos because they were the best. We had a VHS, and we had numerous tapes, numerous stickers marking it all off. We had Mum's tape for Coronation Street. We had Dad's tape, do not touch, do not watch, because it was Dad's tape. So we know what was on Dad's tape. And we had my tape, which was back-to-back Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. But not Scooby-Doo, because I couldn't stand Scooby-Doo and still cannot stand Scooby-Doo. Even if it's got Scrappy-Doo in, can't stand it. And I did not like, not one bit, I did not like it at all, Disney cartoons. No Mickey Mouse, no Donald Duck. It's too squeaky clean. It was all Tex Avery cartoons for me. And Mel Blanc. Yeah, Mel Blanc. All that. Anarchic comedy. That's what I liked.
So did you have one tape?
Yeah, it was a 180. That's what. As a kid, it was that cartoons. As I grew older, when it became Star Trek, then I built my own collection. I was such a Star Trek nerd. I built my own Star Trek shrine, and because I couldn't afford the box sets as a kid, I taped them off the television, and I made my own Star Trek box set by getting white Star Trek boxes and cutting out a picture of the Enterprise. So it looked like it had a Star Trek box set made. It served its purpose on my own Star Trek shrine.
And was watching TV a family event for you? Did you all get around the TV at the same time?
Not really. My mum wasn't big science fiction. We did For the Good Life. My mum never got comedy except she got Penelope Keith. So if there was comedy on, we'd sit down and watch The Good Life. Repeats, obviously. Coronation Street, we had to sit and watch because that was my mum's television. My mum wasn't a big fan of science fiction, but she put up with Doctor Who. But it was a weird old school sort of family. So when my dad came home for tea, he had to eat his tea on his own, watching the news. So he came home, sat in the front room and had his tea. But we didn't really watch television all together for some strange reason. I think it's because my mum was a nurse, in all honesty. So she worked shifts, and we all came together for Coronation Street, Doctor Who, and that was it. So I watched my children's television. Oh no, there was one thing we all watched together thinking about it. And then what that was, see if you can guess what it was. Saturday, around 12 o'clock.
How far back are we going? Early or late 80s?
Early, middle as well. Don't we give you a clue?
Yeah.
Easy.
Oh, Big Daddy Wrestling.
Yes! World of Wrestling. We all watched that together. Kendo Nagasaki and his gobby misses. Remember Jeff Capes, budgie keeper, because he used to keep budgies? He trained at the same sports club as my mum. My mum was going to the Olympics, and unfortunately she told me, instead of going to the Olympics, I had you instead. How's that for a guilt trip? Thanks, Mum.
So what would be a good lineup for TV after school if you had to pick your best programmes and make your own schedule?
Back when I was small, I was always Grange Hill. Oddly enough, I didn't like soap operas, but I always watched Grange Hill. Doctor Who. Madly addicted to Doctor Who. Anything that was Doctor Who, I had a Dalek. You used to have to press a black button on the top of his head, and it would say exterminate the rest of it. My mum got rid of that. She gave it to a jumble sale. So Doctor Who especially. Watching the original Star Trek, huge Blake Seven fan. Avon was always my favourite. Not so long ago, I had the chance to actually speak with Paul Darrow and sat talking to him, and there's hero worship. Just listening to him speak was fantastic. So it's all revolved around science fiction. If it's Doctor Who, my lineup would be Doctor Who, broken up with Grange Hill, then Blake 7, and obviously Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry. I can still watch that now, but my kids can't stand Tom and Jerry, so what's up with that?
What's going on? It should be like an inherited gene.
Yeah, perhaps it's skipped. Perhaps I need to lock them away for a little bit. Put them under the floorboards. When the screaming stops, obviously that's when they're all ready to come out. What would be yours, by the way?
For me, it'd be an episode of Transformers, probably a Grey and Jill as well, probably a Zamo Jackie era Grey and Jill. Real Ghostbusters. I mean, I'm a huge fan of cartoons. I'd probably just have an afternoon of cartoons and Grey and Jill. Maybe Pink Panther. Eon Flux is more 90s, but I'd try and sneak that in, I think.
I found out years later about the Real Ghostbusters that the writer of Babylon 5 had a hand in writing some of the classic episodes of Real Ghostbusters, which I never knew. J. Michael Straczynski. Obviously, I didn't know that one because he'd never wrote Babylon 5 by then, but yeah. You got to start somewhere, don't you?
So I had a similar hero worshipping moment when I met Hugo Myatt from Nightmare, who played Treguard.
What was that like?
He was just sat at a table with his wife, just waiting for people to approach and have a chat or get autographs or whatever. And he just looked like a normal man, just sat there. So I just went over and said, "Hi, do you mind if I get an autograph?" And he just burst into life. He just became Treguard again instantly. It was amazing.
Flipping heck.
Just me and him chatting for 10 minutes. No one else seemed to know who he was. It was like a convention for young people. And for some reason, they got a few 80s people in there. They'd got one of the Hollies from Red Dwarf. I can't remember her name.
Hattie Ulrich.
Yeah, got Hattie Hayridge.
Yeah, met her just the other week.
Did you?
Yeah, she's lovely, isn't she?
She is. She was there, and Treguard was there. It was as though one side of the room was entirely designed for me.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant, that. It's brilliant when you meet a hero.
Yeah. I don't know if I can say this, but I can edit it out, can't I? It's mine.
Good scan.
We went to...
Hey there guys, this is DJ Slope from Slope's Game Room, and there now follows a brief intermission during which the arrogance of a certain TV celebrity is discussed. In order to preserve some of the mystery but ease a little of the suspense, I can reveal that it was an American actor whose character had a fascination for dead people. Ooh.
Yeah, I cut that out anyway.
Yeah.
So I've watched loads of your videos online, and the ones that I like the most are the TV tie-in things where you play like the Fall Guy, Dukes of Hazzard game. That was quite good.
Can we tell you a story about Fall Guy? I did really write a letter to Jimmy Savile asking if I could join up with Colt Seavers to be on the Fall Guy. That was one of the shows that I watched because I wanted to be a stuntman, and it looked so cool. Never did it, thankfully.
So which games are your favourites in general? Is it the TV tie-ins? Is it standalone games?
To be honest with you, it completely varies. Some days, sometimes I'll load up a game, like a ZX81 game, and think, that was brilliant, I need to play more like that. And then sometimes, like the TV tie-ins were mostly tripe, utter tripe. But after I played them, I thought, well, that was really fun because, albeit they were tripe and kicked out the door, it was funny playing them because it's like, how could somebody deliver that? How could somebody say to, here, little kid, give us your £7 and we'll deliver this nonsense here? Because the Spectrum could do so much more than that, and to enjoy a bunch of utter nonsense on a computer screen where you get to mash the keys. It's enjoyable for being bad. So it truly varies. One day I'll be like mashing away through ZX81 games and loving it. And then I'll go and play TV tie-ins and think, that was crap. But as Gus Sinclair used to say, it's crap in a funky skill kind of way. So it really does vary. If I could tie it down and say, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life, that'd be fantastic. But it does vary. It really does. But when I did the TV tie-ins, I wanted to find more because it was truly enjoyable just to see what if people listening now get evilly offended, to see what shit people have created in the 80s.
For some of them, it's almost as though they've made a game, made maybe half a game, made sure it doesn't crash, and just delivered it.
I completely agree. Elite Systems were guilty of most of them when you look at it. So someone like the Fall Guy, someone made a game involving jumping on train cars and sent it to Lee and said, oh, I know, that looks like a stunt. We could go to whoever distributed the Fall Guy, buy that license for $10 and stick it in a box and make a fortune. And then we'll stick, I think it was Chains by Fleetwood Mac. We'll do a Chains cover every time he dies. And there you go, you've got a game. It's like an amalgamation of utter crap slapped together and stuck on magnetic tape. It's nonsense. And the awful thing is, the Transformers game, which is bobbins on the ZX Spectrum, on the Commodore, it's really good. And I watched the Commodore version, it doesn't half look that bad. So it goes to show that if you put it in the wrong programmer's hands, the game's going to be tripe. But it was fun playing some of them. I would have liked to play more. Really would have.
And what was your first experience of a computer?
Mine was... no, there's two here. I could go with the version I'd like to stay with, but the honest one is the orange and black Binatone console. No, with Pong on it. My dad brought it home, and I found out just the other week, because we've recently done up our dining room to be like a retro games nerd room and homework room for my girls. My dad came over and was looking at it, and he started talking about it. That Binatone said, he went, you might not remember this, but when you was about 4, we had a console. I mean, your mum used to play table tennis on it. And I said, I do remember it. I think that's still in his loft, but he won't give it me. But my real computer, which I like to say that was my first, is a ZX81, which I got when it came out. There was only no RAM pack with it at the time. There's a 1K ZX81, and I've still got that on the shelf, and it's looking at me right now. And it had its first service in 37 years just a few months back. Still works a charm. It's a beautiful little machine. It's powerful as heck. It's fantastic. I love it. Like I say, well, you've seen some of my videos, ZX81 videos, the machine is brilliant. It's a classic piece of British engineering. I know it's ridiculed by a lot of people, but I love it. I love it.
That's also my first experience of a computer as well. I think my dad got one, and I played 3D Monster Maze on it endlessly, played the different adventure games on it, and progressed onto a Spectrum after that. But the ZX81 was the one that I first... I don't know if I owned it myself, whether it was my dad's. Couldn't go on it all the time, whereas my dad could, so I don't know if it was mine or not, but that's the first one that I actually used. Really, really good machine.
Do you know the 3D Monster Maze? First time I saw that in action was at my dad's mate's house, and his wife was playing it. It's often been called the first survival game, 3D Monster Maze. And I was just watching her playing it, and she's going through the maze, and next thing, the Tyrannosaurus Rex just appeared out of nowhere, and she screamed so loud and jumped out of the chair, and I thought, oh my God, I've got to get this game. Never got it, and instead I got Bloody Inventions. It's an awful game, Inventions. It's a general knowledge game based around inventions through history. Like, when was the spinning jenny invented and stuff like that? Christ almighty, it's boring. But 3D Monster Maze was... And I've got it myself now. I bought it for myself a few years back, but honestly, watching this woman scream and leap out of her chairs, I thought, this game is amazing. Still is today.
Imagine like a little 4K, or what is it, 4K game, I think, Monster Maze.
I think it works out about 60, just under 16K.
Imagine something that small creating that kind of reaction from an adult.
Just a screamer. She literally jumped out of her chair. I was just thinking, oh my God, this game is so scary, I need it. Now, it makes me scream occasionally, like when Rex is just, oh Christ almighty. But this woman leapt out of her chair. I thought, wow, what is this? Why haven't I got it? What's the crap's inventions? Who give a crap about the spinning jennies? Where's Rex?
So how big was your games collection back in the 80s?
Do you want me to be honest with you? Craply small. If it wasn't for our local council library, I would have no games whatsoever. We used to go to the library and it used to cost like pennies to rent a game for 2 weeks, and then I used to back them up for the library just in case they lost them.
That's very thoughtful of you.
Yeah, because I got £1 when they thought I had deserved pocket money, and for my birthday, £5 for my birthday, and that £5 stayed with me up until I was 16. That's how much I got for birthdays. 1 year for Christmas, when I got £60 for Christmas, and I bought myself a Game Boy because my dad wouldn't buy me a Game Boy for Christmas because they said it's a waste of money. My parents refused to speak to me because they said it was a waste of money. But my games collection was crap. So I used to back up the library games and buy them off car boot sales. So my Spectrum 128K Plus, I bought that myself off a car boot worth a load of games because there was a software publishing company called Software Farms. They made ZX81 high-res games, and this game in Sinclair programs looked unbelievable. And it said, to buy this game, send a check or postal order to such address. I thought, I really want that game. But I didn't want to ask my mum or dad for a check, and I had no idea what a postal order was. So I didn't play it for about 35 years. And then I finally got to play it. So, well, no, that game was great. I wish I had the balls to ask what a check or a postal order was, I'll tell you that. Yeah, but I never saw a real game come through. If it wasn't for the council library, I wouldn't have had a game to play, to be honest with you. My collection was pitiful.
So did you ever program things yourself then?
Sinclair Programs was the magazine for me. Basic listings. That's why I'm building my collection back up right now. I bought one just the other day. I think they came out monthly or bi-monthly. I can't remember what it was. I think it cost a mere £1 if it was that. Because my dad got Electronics Monthly, I think it was. Practically Electronics Monthly or Electronics Weekly. And because the magazine, what I wanted, wasn't full of crap, he'd buy it for me, and I could sit there and type in the basic listings and get like a game going. And it was basic, and it was nonsense or slow or whatever. But I then had a game going. But the worst one was a magazine called Input. I hated it, and my dad was insistent that I type in this program that was spread across about 12 issues. Absolutely insistent, because he wanted it. I think it was like a calendar where you could type a thing in and it would save it. So I typed it out and it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work to the point where he took my ZX81 away from me because this program wouldn't work. And then a few issues later, it printed program listing errors corrected or something like that. And he never said sorry. He never said sorry. Well, that's not fair. It wasn't my fault. Apologise, but he didn't.
Have you had any whoa moments, as in something that you've seen in a game or heard in a game that's made you want to go back to it?
Oh, well, the Houston games, Houston Consultant games. Those games, I used to, when I started playing, like Iridium, was it Stormlord? Which one was the Naked Fairies?
The what?
They had Naked Fairies in it. If you get a chance, go and play Stormlord, because it's got Naked Fairies in it. Rebel Star, the strategy game. I played it. Lords of Chaos. So there's loads of games that made me go back. RoboCop by Ocean as well. That was outstanding. The music alone on RoboCop just had me entranced. I could sit there and listen to that. On the original playthroughs on the Spectrum, when I got these games were backed up from the library. When I first played RoboCop and put it on and the music started, it was Jonathan Dunn's music. I thought, what's this? Just because normal Spectrum music was, and I'm not knocking the Specky because I love the music, a lot of the normal Specky music was blips and blops. And when RoboCop started up, Jonathan Dunn's music was fantastic. And RoboCop was one of the first Specky games I actually completed as well, which made me over the moon, because early Spectrum games I always felt were designed just to think, well, that was a brilliant game, but I'll never complete it because it was rock solid. Like Technician Ted, another Houston game, was too solid. It was pixel perfect and too solid, but completed RoboCop, and I was over the moon, and it was a gorgeous game. ZX81 games these days, if I look back at the games of the 80s, I think it's Rocket Man, of Software Farms one, is outstanding. I only wish I played it back in the 80s because it's gorgeous. The Rocket Man from Software Farms in the 80s made the machine sing, and 3D Monster Maze, obviously. It's an outstanding game.
And what do you think of remakes of old games nowadays? Do they add more to it, or do you prefer the originals?
There is on occasion where I'd say you shouldn't mess with certain things. What was I playing the other day? R-Type. I was playing R-Type. There's a new version of R-Type. So you can play the original, or you can play this version. So the original was in the background as a special. So I thought, I'll play the original, see what they go back and play the old one. And it was bloody solid. It punished me. Now the new one looked gorgeous. It looked absolutely stunning. It was still rock hard. And I thought, yeah, you've done well. You've kept the aesthetic of it, but it's shiny and nice. To capture a new generation of players, you've done well. But there's certain points where you think, yeah, don't touch it. Just don't touch it, because you don't need to. But again, there's also a point where you think, I'd like people to discover it. And the only way to discover the original is to introduce them to a new version, and then perhaps they can go back. So there is a call for HD remakes. There is a call for HD remakes, especially when you see some. I don't know if we can talk about PlayStations, because PlayStations are more 90s. Perhaps Mega Drive games. Someone was showing the games, a couple of the Mega Drive games the other day. They're looking at it as if someone smeared Vaseline over the screen. I think the way to find the old games is to show them a slightly shinier new game, to be honest with you. On occasions.
And when you think of 80s gaming specifically, what's the first image that comes to mind? Do you have like a logo you think of, or a loading screen, or maybe a tune?
Ocean Software. The main reason for Ocean Software for me is, can I have two? Ocean Software and Mastertronic. Mastertronic was my pocket money saviour game. If I was doing it right and didn't spend my pocket money, I was guaranteed I could buy a new game, because there was a shop around the corner for me that sold budget Mastertronic games, and they had racks and racks of them. And that shop's long since gone now. But they had all the Mastertronic games just laid out all over. And they had games like One Man and His Droid and all sorts of stuff like that. And there was a load of chaff in amongst the Mastertronic titles, but occasionally they had some total great gems in that, like Nighttime and Finders Keepers and stuff like that. So Mastertronic was the label to go to for pocket money games. But Ocean, and I know Ocean were guilty of delivering some dross, but they also delivered games like Daley Thompson's Decathlon, and that has a distinct memory for me, because my mum wouldn't entertain my Spectrum or ZX81 one bit. But when I got Daley Thompson's Decathlon, again, backed up from the library, she would play that game. Again, as I said before, she nearly went to the Olympics, and she loved it. She'd come upstairs and she'd say, reload that game for us. I'd put Daley Thompson's Decathlon on, and she'd play it and she'd love it. She was one of those people that could do like the 1,500 meters on Daley Thompson's Decathlon, which I have no time for at all. Even with the cheat of where you've got to wait till the clock's nearly getting to the full time and then you go, so you get there in like 1 second. I've got no time for the 1,500 meters. And she could do the high jump. You jump over that thing. She could do that. But she loved the Daley Thompson's Decathlon, and she'd play it. So Ocean Software for me, it's like it was the games I wanted to buy, and it's always the full price labels. And I knew I couldn't buy it unless it was coming up to Christmas, when I knew I'd have some money.
And where have you found to be the best places to play games nowadays? Do you go to many events, many expos, any arcades?
Play Expo, Manchester, is a fantastic place. I've been now, except last year because it wasn't on, which is unfair, for a good few years. That is a brilliant place to go and find A, old arcade machines and machines, and B, a good few of indie titles that I've never even heard of as well. Hopefully I'll go to it this year. Oh, I went to the arcade club in Bury. That's brilliant. If you've never been there, I'd recommend going there. You pay like 15 quid on the door. You've got 2 whole floors of total arcade nonsense. Top floor's total retro, including the original Outrun sit-down, original Star Wars sit-down cabinet, and then, second floor is loads of mad Japanese cabinets, sit-down, huge screen Mario Kart. What else have they got? Pinballs. They've got loads.
Did you have a go on the table flipping game?
Yes, I did.
What a bizarre game that is.
No, I couldn't understand one word of what I was supposed to be doing. All I knew, I had to flip a table. I didn't do too bad as well, I don't think. My friend, though, from Brum, Christ, he's built like a pit bull terrier. And I thought he'd going to snap it off the way he did it. He went, hey, Phil, let me do this. And he just whacked it like it was going out of fashion. And the good thing about the arcade club is the food and drink is reasonably priced as well. Expected to be totally ripped off when I went in. How much is that pizza? Your firstborn. But it wasn't like that. It was like a $5 for a pizza, which was marvellous.
I didn't really want a lot to eat. I wanted a bag of crisps and I wanted a can of pop. So I went to the counter and I asked for some Space Raiders and a can of pop, and I gave £5, and I got back more than £4 change. Nowadays, it's just unheard of.
Yeah, I don't think you get that from our news agent across the road. No, it's a marvellous place. I love it. I want to go back again. It's just out of the way and I don't drive right now, so I want to go back again.
So can you settle, not an argument, but can you settle something for me? Which one is better, the Spectrum or the Commodore 64?
Oh, this is taking us back to the 1980s playground conflict. Are we not including the Amstrad CPC 464? Is that out of the fight? Is that gone?
I've put the Amstrad just to one side.
Yeah, you can go home, Amstrad. Yeah, hold our bags. I'll be totally honest. I'll concede that until the 128K Specky came out, the Amstrad, the Commodore, sorry, not the Amstrad, what am I thinking? The Commodore had a nice sound going on, but with the AY chip, then, I'm sorry, the Spectrum 128 is much better than the Commodore ever could dream. Take your blocky graphics and brown colour scheme to the back, please.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you're entirely right, so that's good. And same question again, what's the best between the Atari ST and the Amiga?
I'll be honest with you, I can't answer that. I have never, to this day, touched an Amiga or an ST. To me, they technically don't exist, like France. So, I've never seen it, so I don't know what it looks like. So, one day I'll have in my possession either or either. It's like the Sam Coupe. I actually don't believe the Sam Coupe exists. I think people just talk about it on some sort of massive global conspiracy just to wind me up, because I've never seen it.
So if it's not in your consciousness, it doesn't exist.
Exactly right. Just like Spain and Australia and Italy and...
Wow. This is quite a big conspiracy.
Yeah, it's just... anything outside my void doesn't exist.
And can you recreate any gaming sound effects?
Let me try. I used to be able to do, let's see if I can still do it. Did it pick that up? No, never mind. I had my finger in my ear and I was pushing it backwards and forwards. I was trying to do the Pac-Man noise, but it didn't work. No, it doesn't work. No, let's see if we can do a noise. How's that?
That was lovely. What did that recreate?
Some wind. Let's say Resident Evil.
That'll do. And for those people online who want to see you or read your tweets or experience some Villordsutch, where can they find you?
They can come to my house. I don't know. They can find me on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Villordsutch, or Twitter's at Villordsutch. That's how easy it is.
And where does the name come from as well?
Remember at the beginning of the internet, back in the 90s, there was a chat room called The Park, and oddly enough, HAL 9000 was taken. Don't know why. So I was trying to think of a name to take, and I noticed as I was looking around, on the screen was the leader of the Monster Raving Looney Party, and I never liked him as a child. He always upset me. So I typed in Evil Lord Sutch, and it wouldn't accept it. Too many characters. I thought, oh, there's a name in that though. I can see it. Took off the E, combined the rest, and Villordsutch came up. And I've used it now for 20 plus years. And some people, there's a guy, well, it's a couple of people that don't even recognise me as my actual real name, and won't even acknowledge it when my wife calls me by my real name. So they'll only accept Vill. They'll shout Vill across pubs, which is quite weird. Vill, what do you want to drink? Oh, but that's not my name.